Hey there everybody, Zach Butler YGO back with another video. This time I'm going to answer some of the questions that I saw very frequently in the comment sections of my Top Cut deck profile. I wanted to give you all a visual aid instead of just answering the questions in case this is a better way for you to learn. And don't worry, I remembered my extra deck this time, so we are good to go on that front. As always, if you want to pick up any of the cards found in this video, go ahead and use the affiliate link down in the description below. A portion of that does help me out while helping yourself get those awesome and powerful cards, so that would be greatly appreciated. And if you want to pick up anything else, go ahead and use any of the other affiliate links in there as well. You'll find stuff for Dueling Guard as well as other companies. And if you have any questions, go ahead and join the Discord. I'll go ahead and provide a link for that as well. I often am just hanging out in there, willing to answer questions, concerns, thoughts, and even help out with some decks or even some of the math and stuff up behind all of that good stuff that we all know and love in Yu-Gi-Oh! But we're going to jump in right away with some beginner tips, so let's get going. Alright, so these first couple of points are going to be for newer Blue Eyes players, or if you are trying to get a brush up on the modern Blue Eyes deck in case you haven't really played it yet, or haven't played in a while and you're trying to catch up. So if this isn't your sort of thing, I'll go ahead and leave some timestamps down below so you can go ahead and skip through these as well, just in case that isn't your thing. But one of the first questions I got asked, primarily at the WCQ, was what did I value as a primary normal summon? Was it Ether Beryl or Sage with Eyes of Blue? And I think the best way to think about this is to look at what they get you. So Ether Beryl can get you either Drill Beam or Lordly Lode, and Sage either gets you to Maiden, which gets you to the other stuff, or Effect Failure, which is off to the side here. I didn't prepare that. So in my deck, that's what these two cards can get you. Obviously, they can then bridge into other things, but it really is it depends on where you're trying to go. However, typically the primary normal summon is always going to be Ether Beryl. And the reason for that is that Ether Beryl gets you an additional summon into Droll, which I will explain in a moment, and it also gets you into better defensive options. So if I opened up with a hand of Sage and Ether Beryl, I would say a solid 9 times out of 10, Ether Beryl is going to be your primary normal summon. And then you'll obviously go ahead and do your stuff. You'll link into Spirit with Eyes of Blue, and that will get you to Mausoleum, which will get you to Sage. The other reason why Ether Beryl is a better normal summon is because if you get Drolled on the resolution of Lordly Lode, searching for Drill Beam, you can at least still establish either a Spheres or Ether Beryl plus Blue Eyes on the field and have that going for you. So you'll at least have something for a defensive option instead of just having a Sage that gets to Maiden, and then Maiden can maybe get you to Majesty or Roar. It really depends. I found that the Ether Beryl lines were better into potential Droll than Sage, but there are arguments sometimes to go for Sage over the Beryl. But I would say I'd honestly say 95 times out of 100 you're gonna go for Ether Beryl first. Now, one thing I also got asked was if I opened up with Lordly Lode and Ether Beryl, which one would I start off with? It is always better to go Ether Beryl into Lordly Lode than Lordly Lode into Ether Beryl, even if you open up with both. And the reason for that is very, very basic. If you normal summon Ether Beryl, this represents all three and doesn't lose to Droll. If you start with Lordly Lode, that can be either Ether Beryl or it'll also be all three, but loses harder to Droll. Because if you do it this way, you get to set this first, and then this will add the Drill Beam. Whereas if you do it this way with Lordly Lode first, then you add the Ether Beryl, normal summon the Ether Beryl, and then get to Drill Beam. And if they don't have Droll, having done it Lordly Lode first, you actually don't get as much value out of your discards as you would if you did it the other way. Because if you go normal summon Ether Beryl, set Lordly Lode, activate Lordly Lode to add Drill Beam, and then you discard the Drill Beam for Wishes, you can reset the Drill Beam that same turn, and that gets you a free Wishes search effectively. Speaking of Lordly Lode, a couple of quick things to note with this card. The first is that the search is mandatory, so if you can't search, you can't even activate Lordly Lode. That did actually come up in Swiss, where I had set a Lordly Lode and I did not flip it earlier in the turn. I wanted to resolve Wishes, and the reason why that mattered was because then I couldn't flip Lordly Lode to add the Drill Beam, and that meant that I also couldn't access Lordly Lode because I was under Droll and Lockbird. So I couldn't even flip it to activate it. You must search if you activate it. Another really key thing, and this is actually one of the ways that I'll get into some tricks later, is that Lordly Lode can summon from hand, deck, or graveyard. And that's really important for playing around some of the mull journeys. But that will be a later tip. I just wanted to make sure to mention that Lordly Lode can summon from hand, deck, or graveyard, so even if you do draw some of your Blue Eyes White Dragons, that is totally okay. Lordly Lode is still going to be able to be useful to summon those monsters. Alright, but what about Sage with Eyes of Blue? Obviously, it's your second normal summon, and it has 2 search targets in Maiden and Effect Veiler. So, these are pretty easy. Maiden is going to be your primary search because it's what gets you to your True Light, which then gets you to all of your other powerful options, and then Effect Veiler is your utility option that I included one of because I just wanted to have it just in case. And I would say a solid 9 times out of 10, if you don't have Maiden, you're gonna search for Maiden. I'd say actually 10 times out of 10. I can't even think of a time where I didn't search for Maiden on purpose. But typically you're gonna go Sage into Maiden and then you can go into Veiler. You can even go Sage into Maiden, and then if you get if you're worried about a Droll, you can Maiden True Light, and then you can use the wishes that you set off the True Light to add the Effect Veiler, and you actually get all 3 out of the deck, which is pretty cool. That can also come up a few times, or even if you don't get Drolled and you don't value an additional normal summon, that can also be a thing that you can add Veiler off of wishes because it is a level 1 light tuner. One very uncommon thing that will happen when you are playing Blue Eyes is that for some reason, Maiden seems to be attached to True Light in your hand, even if you do a very robust shuffle. But that's actually something that is important to note, is that Maiden can place True Light from your hand, deck, or graveyard to your field. So even if you draw True Light alongside Maiden, that's actually totally okay. And there are some really cool tips and tricks that we'll get into later in the video as to how to maximize Maiden plus True Light. So that's really something that you want to keep in mind, is that even if you draw True Light, it is okay. If you get access to Maiden, you're still able to play your powerful trap card. One of the things that separates the average Blue Eyes player, or maybe a newer Blue Eyes player, from a really proficient one is how you play around, play through, and even sometimes just disrespect Droll and Lockbird. This card can make or break your tournament run if you are not aware of how to maximize your deck against it. And so I wanted to go into a couple of tips and tricks for you to deal with Droll and Lockbird. The first one is going to be utilizing Primite Lordly Lode. The Primite Lordly Lode actually just lets you play through a Droll and Lockbird with at least a little bit of decency. If you were to activate Lordly Lode and add Ether Beryl and then they Droll you, that's actually not too bad, because what you can do then is normal summon the Ether Beryl, set your Drill Beam, obviously, and then you can simply activate Lordly Lode to special summon your Blue Eyes White Dragon from your deck, and then you're honestly good to pass there. Or, depending on your hand composition, you can even go into a Hieratic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres, and then you'll have that as well to defend your plays, and then the seal can special summon another Blue Eyes White Dragon from your deck, which will then turn on your Drill Beam. I typically like doing it more this way because it just means that the Drill Beam is live right away, but let's just say you get Drolled, this is still totally fine, because on the following turn, let's say the Ether Beryl dies, you'll still have the Ether Beryl to come back. They've now taken a -1 because they don't have the Droll, so they'll have 5 cards. You've only used 1 card, so your hand still has 4 other cards in it. So you would pass with this and 4 cards in hand. Chances are you've drawn a hand trap or 2, and you have a Drill Beam as well. So they now have to play through Drill Beam and potentially a couple hand traps with their 5 cards, and as long as you are very careful about what you Drill Beam, depending on your hand composition, you're pretty good to go. Now, if you drew the Blue Eyes, then you absolutely should go into Seal, because you can just reveal the other Blue Eyes in your hand. I'll just use this as the placeholder. Let's say you drew the other Blue Eyes, so your hand is 3 blanks, a Blue Eyes, and then you have this on the field. Well, then you have this to bounce, you have this to banish, revealing the Blue Eyes, and you have a hand trap or 2. That's still totally fine, and is actually pretty good into Droll and Lockbird, because mind you, they've taken a -1 for literally nothing. You got that free card for absolutely nothing, and next turn you'll have the Ether Beryl to follow up, and then you can reset your Drill Beam, and you'll have had the Hieratic Seal to special summon probably a Magnum Nut from deck, so you're going to be even better off. One way I really like to disrespect Droll and Lockbird in the deck is to use Wishes with Eyes of, or for Eyes of Blue. Wishes is one of the craziest cards in the deck. By discarding a card, you add a level 1 Light Tuner and a spell or trap that mentions Blue Eyes White Dragon from your deck to your hand, except for Wishes, which is totally fine. And a lot of times I've seen people play into Droll with this card that they don't need to. So let's say you activate Wishes and you discard anything. It could be, you know, we'll just say, for the sake, just this blank card. Let's say this is I don't know, an Ash Blossom or a Mulcharmy. So if you're worried about Droll and Lockbird, you can actually change what you search. Typically, most people will search Sage and either Roar or Majesty. That is the stock standard search. However, most of the time I found that I was searching Maiden. And the reason for that was because now, let's say you activated your Wishes and you search for Maiden and Roar. Now let's say they Droll and Lockbird you, right? So you're under your Droll and Lockbird, but you have Maiden and Roar. This is still actually totally fine because you can activate Maiden, place True Light from the deck, activate Roar, special summon out your Blue Eyes White Dragon, and then trigger your Maiden to come back. And now you can either go into your Spirit and then Seal, which is, again, totally reasonable, actually, to go Spirit with Eyes of Blue, and then link the Spirit and the Blue Eyes into Seal, because what you do then is in your end phase, you'll activate True Light to set the Majesty. So now you'll have the Seal, and then you'll also have the Majesty, and off the Seal, you're probably going to summon Blue Eyes White Dragon from the deck, honestly, because what'll happen is you'll get the Blue Eyes, which will then, you know, trigger your Maiden, yada, yada, yada. That's totally normal. But then you'll have a second Blue Eyes to reveal off of Majesty, so you get to destroy 2 cards instead of 1. Or you can summon Magnamut to grab Ether Beryl, and you'll still have the destruction of 1 card with Majesty, which can be enough to use the next turn as well. That's a really easy way to... I always make the joke that it just disrespects Droll and Lockbird. It almost ignores Droll and Lockbird's existence because, yes, they drolled you, but you still got 2 forms of interruptions. You managed to acquire 2 forms of interruptions off of them using their Droll and Lockbird. Another path you can do instead of doing the spheres is to, you know, get to the point where you have the True Light on the field with the Maiden in the graveyard, Wishes in the Unknown in the graveyard, and you still have your Roar, right? So then you activate your Roar, you special summon your Blue Eyes, special summon your Maiden, totally normal there, and then you just synchro summon into Spirit Dragon, and Spirit Dragon plus a trap card, which is going to be the Majesty that you'll set from your True Light because you haven't used its effect yet. So you'll have all of that. You'll still have 3 cards in hand because you used Wishes plus 1 Unknown. So you'll end with Spirit, Majesty for 1, as well as 3 cards in hand. Again, through Droll and Lockbird, totally fine. If you're worried about them having a targeting effect like an Infinite Impermanence, in this case, you can absolutely use your Wishes for Eyes of Blue, banishing it to equip the Neo Ultimate Dragon and all that stuff. That's another layer of protection, but this will be an interrupt here for a graveyard, then you tribute it to special summon your Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon. That's another interaction. Or if you're worried, or if they don't do anything and you want to get some more advantage, you can go Azure Eyes in the end phase, stuff like that. The layers are there, but again, this is all through a Droll and Lockbird that they were hoping would be enough to stop your turn. So really quick, I wanted to show you all a quick example of one of the hands I had from the NAWCQ, because Blue Eyes is notorious for drawing very awkward and sometimes unplayable hands. As you can see, I have 3 Perulia, a Droll Lockbird, and a Maiden in front of me. Was not a great hand, and I was going first. So what I ended up doing was what I thought to be a pretty tricky play that I really enjoy, and I wanted to show you all that I actually learned through Master Duel by having to play a ton of games with the deck with no Primate cards. So first I activated Maiden of White, of course, to place True Light. Nothing crazy there. Activated True Light, and set a Wishes for Eyes of Blue. This is pretty normal and honestly was something I really needed to go through, so I activated my Wishes, discarded Perulia, and they hit me with an Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. So now I'm left with 2 Perulias, a Droll and Lockbird, and a True Light. Not a great hand, but you can always normal summon your Droll and Lockbird because it is level 1 spellcaster. And then you link it into your Spirit with Eyes of Blue. Spirit then searches for Mausoleum. Now, obviously, yes, if they have an impermanence, this would be terrible, but luckily they did not have one. They did have the Ash for the copy of Wishes, and then they had Droll here as well, which was terrible. I don't know why they Drolled. I feel like if your opponent normal summons a Droll Lockbird and then links into Spirit to add, you probably shouldn't bother Drolling, because that means they don't really have a better summon, but it's fine. Then I activated the Mausoleum, activated effect to target the blue eye, or the Spirit Eyes of Blue, and sent Blue Eyes White Dragon right up to the graveyard. Then activated Spirit to special summon the Blue Eyes White Dragon, which then triggered the Maiden of White. So then from there, I went into a second Spirit, and then into Spheres. And while that isn't the greatest hand, it is at least something. You could also go, instead of burning 2 more extra deck spots, you could just go Maiden and Blue Eyes into Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon, and then that can tag out into other things as well. That might actually, in retrospect, have been better, but I felt that the Hieratic Seal was the better play because I didn't know what I was playing against initially. It ended up that the bounce was very beneficial, but that is just an example. If you draw like a really awkward hand of just like a bunch of non-engine and then like just Maiden, what you can do at least is you can still always end on Spirit Dragon or Hieratic Seal. So I did get asked about Azure Eyes a decent amount. The main reason for playing Azure Eyes is that honestly, for me, I felt that it was an additional copy of True Light. And what I mean by that is that the longer that either of these cards remained on the field, the closer I was to winning. If you resolve True Light even twice to special summon or search, any combination of those, I am very confident that you were winning the game. That is a ton of free value. If you get 2 sets off of True Light, or a set and a special summon, that is a ton of advantage, because that means that you're getting an additional summon of Blue Eyes White Dragon, then you're getting to Maiden, you're getting your searches, you're getting all your stuff, you're getting to play. And in a lot of ways, Azure Eyes actually felt the same way, because let's say I summoned Azure Eyes in the end phase, and then in the standby phase, I special summon back my Blue Eyes. Now I have 2 bodies to work with, and this is a free throwaway body later on in the turn, because I can always bring it back on my next standby phase. Another cool thing is that at least once, I don't remember what round it was, but I summoned Azure Eyes, and then they destroyed my True Light after the Azure Eyes had activated to protect, because it says that dragon monsters you currently control cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects until the end of the next turn. So I had already resolved. True Light destroyed all my non-dragon monsters, but then in the standby phase, I actually brought back Blue Eyes White Dragon, which then let me bring back the Maiden from my graveyard. And then in my main phase, I got to just tag out the Maiden for the True Light again, and I lost absolutely nothing. It's not a card that comes up terribly often, but when it does come up, you are really grateful to have it, and I was very thankful to have it. There was also one point in the tournament where I went really crazy with the combos, where I opened up really well, and I felt like they didn't have Nibiru. They kind of gave me that read that their hand was pretty awful. So I ended up ending with Azure Eyes as well as Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon. The reason for this is because, again, Azure Eyes is going to protect the Spirit Dragon from the Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon Destruction Resolution at the end phase, but also neither of them could be targeted, so I had non-targeting giant bodies, one of which was a giant negation. And that only came up once in the entire tournament, but I was really glad to have the Azure Eyes to let me go really crazy with that. And I had also had like a set Solemn Judgment or something too, so it just bolstered my already really strong field. Typically though, you're never going to do this line, and this very rarely comes up. Honestly, these synchros very rarely come up. I barely made these, but when I did, I was really happy to have them. Another very common question I got in the comment sections was, how did I utilize my side deck? Well, I will show you the sighting patterns that I had overall for the tournament. They were very straightforward, which I liked a lot. I am very much of the philosophy that you want your side deck to be as fluid and simple as possible. You'll notice it's mostly just 3 ofs, just to go over again. So you had these, and then there's 2 droplets, and then a Nibiru, and then the 6 Solemns. So the side deck is very simple. And I subscribe to that philosophy very... I don't like this intro. Another thing that came up quite often in the comment section was, how did I utilize my side deck? What were my sighting patterns? Well, one thing you'll notice is that my side deck is very simple. I try to keep it as basically 3 ofs when I'm side decking, and that is because it makes it very easy to side in and out. It also makes it very easy to remember your side deck, because if you're playing in a 12 to 15 round tournament, you obviously do not want to make mistakes. So my side deck was very straightforward in that sense. I will go over really quick most of my siding patterns, and I'll kind of explain why I went with these patterns. The universal one that you can always keep in mind is that when going first, and this was actually how I would side almost entirely against everything, is that the 6 Mulch armies would come out for the 6 Solemn cards. That was against every single deck what I would do. And that is just because these are not live when you go first. These are obviously live when you go first. That was the easiest siding that I would do against every matchup. So no matter what I was playing against going first, the 6 Mulch armies would come out and 6 Solemns would come in, because then I get to play the deck as a trap deck instead of a hand trap deck. Very easy. When playing against Malice, you had these 6, obviously, as the standard going first, but then I also sided out of the 3 Droll and Lockbirds. This is because I didn't care about Mulch armies at all against Malice, or anything really. But Malice doesn't do any searches, so the Droll and Lockbirds came out, and then the Lancias would come in, and that was the Malice plan when going first. Just 9 in, 9 out, easy peasy, super straightforward from there. Going second though, it changed a little bit. So we would still side in the 3 Lancias, but then I would side into 2 Droplets, as well as a Harpy's Feather Duster. And then going second, I would side out the 3 Droll and Lockbirds, and then 1 Wishes, 1 Magnemite, and Called by the Grave. The reason for this is that Magnemite is obviously not that good against Malice. It can be okay, but it's the weakest non-engine card I had. Called by the Grave, I feel like, is really only good when you're going first. You want, unless you're playing against Mitsurugi, because it gets value there. But you primarily really want to be able to force through your first turn plays and try to suck as much forward as you can. So Called by the Grave came out, and then the Singleton Wishes was because you only have 2 search targets for Wishes anyway. So the reason to play 3 when you're going first is you need to see it. But when you actually do the math on seeing a card when you go first versus when you go second, it actually is the same, roughly. I think it might actually be the exact same. I don't remember the exact number off my head. But seeing a 2 of when you go second is the same as seeing a 3 of when you go first. So we took out the Wishes for that. And that was the Malice side deck pattern. Against Mitsurugi, again, the same basic pattern. Going first, you take out the 6 Charmies, you bring in the 6 Solemns. If you're playing against Mitsurugi Ryziel, however, I would also add in that I would take out an additional card for the Nibiru, and I would take out a single Wishes. Even though it does reduce your consistency slightly, I did want to have a second copy of Nibiru because the Ryziel cards make it so you're much more likely to play into Nibiru. So having that second copy of Nibiru was really good. And again, Wishes isn't the best starter in your deck. I prefer to have any other starter to Wishes, but if it was there, it was there. When going second, however, you would bring in 2 Lightning Storm, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, and 2 Droplets. And you would take out 1 Wishes, 1 copy of Lordly Lode, and I would personally take out the 3 Purulia because I felt like the deck was not as weak to Purulia as it was to Fuelos. You could argue to take out the Fueloses instead, but I felt like I could deal with a Murakumo instead of a Detonator plus another rank 4. So going second, this is what I would side out for Mitsurugi Ryziel, and this is what I would side in. Pretty straightforward. Yeah, if I'm playing against pure Mitsurugi, these are probably going to be taken out, or these will probably be Fueloses instead, because pure Mitsurugi, I found that Purulia tends to be a little bit better. You get like a second draw typically if you... neither the Charmies are particularly good against Mitsurugi. You could even argue just to take out the Charmies instead and leave the consistency cards. How about Vanquish Soul? Well, that is a matchup I actually found to be fairly favorable for Blue Eyes, at least so far. I've only played against it a few times. The first time I ever actually played against the Vanquish Soul deck was the WCQ. So I was just doing, again, the standard 6/6 when I go first, And when I went second, I would actually do a very minimal side. I would do the 2 Storm and the Duster, and then I would take out Called by the Grave, Magnamut, and typically one of the Wishes, and that was about it. The reason is that your engine actually pairs decently into the Vanquish Soul engine. Your non-engine also pairs decently into theirs, and one of the key things that I found to actually be really beneficial is that Vanquish Soul tends to front load a lot of their interactions into this deck. They have to try to prevent you to getting to Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon, because this card can single-handedly clear their entire field. Against Vanquish Soul, this was my focus, was to get to this. I could attack over everything, and oftentimes actually just be an OTK, because Rock is stuck in attack position, obviously, because it's a link, and has 0 attack, so that's a free 34, and then if you're attacking over everything else, it just gets a ton of damage. And even if they don't die, they've lost so many cards to such a minimal investment that you're just ahead, and you can lean on them that way. I think those are kind of the main matchups. Like Striker, obviously, you know, these go in, stuff like that. Typically, though, the main focus was just that the Solemns go in when you go first, the Moltramies go out when you go first, and then Board Breakers go in when you go second, and you take out some of those additional starters that you don't necessarily need when you go first. And the reason for that is because this is actually, it's funny, for as much as Blue Eyes gets you know, flack for being a very bricky deck, it's very consistent. You play 15 starters, like 15 true starters, and so because of that, you actually have a 91.2% chance when you're going first. In 9 out of 10 games, you have a 90% chance when you're going first. So in 9 out of 10 games, you should see a starter going first in your opening 5 cards. So you're able to play the vast majority of your games. When you go second, that actually goes down, or it actually goes up when you take out a starter. When you take out a starter or 2, it should go up to over 92% when you take out 1 starter. You go to 91.6% when you're going second. So the deck is very consistent, which is going to be really good. And then for non-engine, you have a 95% chance, and I think it's 95.5%, to see at least 1 non-engine card in your opening hand, because there are 18. Then you have a 74% chance to see at least 2. So that could be, you know, 2 Imperms, Ash Imperm, Ash Veiler, you know, Nibiru Imperm, stuff like that. And in 38% chance, you have a 38% chance to see 3 or more non-engine in your hand. So you can see that in the majority of your games, you're going to see at least 2 non-engine. You're going to see at least 1 engine, and you have 2 flex spots. So the deck is very consistent, and I like that a lot. It's a very simple deck. It's very low to the ground, but it offers a lot of skill expression in that sense that you're just learning to maximize your resources. If you guys have any other questions, let me know down below. I'll try my best to answer them. I think I answered pretty much everything I saw asked the most. I just wanted to help bring a little bit extra knowledge, since this is a deck I'm very passionate about. It's a deck I love playing. I'll do my best to get some gameplay up again, and maybe we'll do our Back to Basics series again. But yeah, until next time, have a good day.